Okay, I think the 10-second delay has passed, so I can start talking. Welcome welcome everyone. It's so great. I think hopefully there'll be some more people joining, but we do want to get started. It's 3:01. Bob always likes to run things on time, and that's great because we always want to be respectful of everybody's time, but we want to cover a lot of information. And this might be a new topic for some of the people on this call, some who are on the call, some who've yet to join. And the plan is to have, so this is the welcome. And then next on the agenda, scheduled for 3:03, so I still have a minute, Stephanie Harris and Irene Goldman will talk about their 15-year quest to have paper ballots in New Jersey and how that's going. Very important part of this discussion. So they'll talk until from 3:03 to 3:08. I will introduce Yale at 3:08. Yale will give a discussion on her part of the presentation that focuses on the problems with the line in New Jersey primaries. And then there will be a question. So hold your questions until after Yale finishes. Bob Moore will moderate the question and answer period that's supposed to start at 3:45. We're slated to finish at 4, but if there's a lot of questions, and we hope there are, we will be able to go beyond the 4 o'clock, but maybe we'll, as Bob likes to do, maybe we'll end on time. So now Irene, who is the board, the president of our Coalition for Peace Action board will speak. And I just also wanted to mention what a dynamic duo Irene and Stephanie make, and also Yale and Julia Sass-Rubin, who is not here with us today, but Laura Zerflu is. So the three of them, Yale, Laura, and Julia, make a terrific triumvirate, trio that have been leading this effort for, I think, 5 years now or more. And it's both issues are really, really important. So
thank you.
3:03, Irene, please go.
Thank you very much. I'm Irene Etkin Goldman, board chair of the Coalition for Peace Action for a number of years, almost as long as Stephanie Harris and I have been waging the battle to get paper ballots here in New Jersey. Thank you, Mark Pepper, our board member, who is arranged for this meeting to take place. It's a very important subject for all of us, and I thank you. And our fearless leader, Bob Moore, and Coalition for Peace Action Assistant, Patricia Hall. Thank you, Yael, for bringing the program to us. I'm going to give this has been a long journey to get the proper technology for voting in the state of New Jersey. And the lead on this really should be speaking to you today is Stephanie Harris, who is the Coalition for Peace Action Voting Integrity Task Force Chair, and my fearless partner. Please, Stephanie.
Thank you, Irene. I see some old friends online today and others who might not be cognizant of the issues that the coalition has been facing for now the past 17 years. We have been trying to get hand-marked paper ballots and precinct-based optical scans to be the technology used in all of New Jersey for voting because it is the most secure and the least expensive. As of today, we know that Mercer County and Essex County have adopted this technology. There are several other counties who have adopted a technology which is not as secure and, by the way, more expensive, and that is known as a hybrid machine, which is a ballot marking device and a ballot tabulator all in one machine. And it has been shown that these machines can be hacked. So our recommendation to you is to find out from your county board of elections what technology will be utilized in your county. And if it is one of these hybrid machines, or if your county is still using the paperless DRE machines, then we would urge you to vote by mail. Thanks to the pandemic, all of New Jersey was voting by mail in 2020, which meant that the pandemic helped us win our 17-year-long battle. However, now they are going back to other technologies for voting, and in-person voting might not be the best choice if you do not have hand-marked paper ballots. Also of note is that Assemblyman Moriarty has introduced a bill, A-1527, which has been co-sponsored by DeAngelo, Danielson, Benson, Mosquera, Jimenez. So if any of those are your assembly people, I hope your ears will perk up. And this bill is dreadful and is asking for a pilot project to allow military and their families to vote on the internet. Now, an outcome of the lawsuit that we brought back in 2004 was that the judge disallowed any connection to the internet for voting machines. In the interim, there has been a federal pilot project for the military using the internet for voting. And Alex Halderman and his students at the University of Michigan were able to easily hack into that technology. And they left the University of Michigan fight song on it in order to let people know that it had been hacked. Notwithstanding all of this evidence, our esteemed assembly people have decided that this would be a great idea and that we should try a pilot project in New Jersey. So if you have recognized any of the names that I read out, or if you have any connections whatsoever, it would be very wise for you to write a letter or to call to strongly oppose the use of the internet for voting. It is not at all secure. And with that, I'll turn it back to Irene. Did I forget anything, Irene?
You did not forget anything, and it is horrific that in the time and in these times when more and more hacking is taking place of nuclear weapons and everything else, why would they introduce an internet voting bill? So thank you, Steffi. Do what Steffi said.
Okay, great. And it's 3:09, so we're really doing great. And Laura did have a question. What is the bill number? And if somebody could answer that in the chat. And I forgot to mention, I mean, certainly if there are questions for Irene and Stephanie, please direct all questions to Bob Moore, I guess, in the chat.
Right.
Questions for Yale and on both topics. And it's, I just want to say it's great to have two great coalitions coalescing right today. And we've worked together in the past. And I just want to mention real quick, Laura started Indivisible Cranberry. I think it's one of the first indivisible groups that started in the country back in January of 2017. We had monthly meetings. Laura started talking about this group called the Good Government Coalition. I think a group of them started meeting in Yale's house in Princeton. That organization, I don't want to take Yale's thunder, but that organization has grown and grown, and it's made a lot of progress. We still have they still have a long way to go. I'm thrilled to have been, involved with the group for a lot of that time. And I've heard this presentation many, many times, and I never get tired of hearing it. So Yale, Yale, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm assuming I can share screen. Yes.
I'm sorry, I did forget to introduce more about Yale, but Yale, you can maybe introduce yourself.
I will.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, sure.
I forgot to say, all the other good stuff about it.
This portion of screen share. Just a second. This will take. Just move this slideshow. Oops. Okay. And one last thing I need to do. There we go. Okay, so yes, so my name is Yael Niv, and I am I live in Princeton. I am a president of the Good Government Coalition of New Jersey. I've heard the Reverend Moore speak at more than one event that Laura has organized. A big fan of your organization. And I want to tell you today about our Better Ballots New Jersey campaign. So especially this week, this is such a telling week. We can appreciate that living in a democracy, we're fortunate to be able to give power to those who represent our values. And we expect our representatives to be accountable to us, the voters, because we can always vote them out if they don't faithfully represent us. Except it turns out that this isn't true in New Jersey. And here's one example. So a year or so ago, a 10-year contract with ICE was up for renewal in Hudson County. The county commissioners had promised 2 years prior to that to end the contract. However, despite hundreds of voters speaking against the contract until past midnight, the contract was renewed. And more than that, what county commissioners later did was they made new rules to prevent public outcry. So they limited severely the public participation in their meetings. So they didn't sit and contemplate on how is it that they voted against what their constituents want. They said, we don't want to listen to our constituents anymore. And the question is, how is this possible? Why don't county commissioners care what voters think, given that we can vote them out in theory? So what special interests are driving their actions? And the answer is that the truth is that New Jersey's democracy is severely broken. And voter suppression, gerrymandering happen not only in Texas, Georgia, and Florida, but right here under a different disguise. The story in New Jersey is a story of primary elections. So general elections are not competitive for the majority of New Jersey counties and legislative districts, which means that winning the primary election is enough to win the general election. So 18 of 21 counties in 2021 were declared to have one-party control. And this, I'm sure, is not going to change in 2022. So as I said, winning the party primary for the relevant party in each area basically guarantees a win in the general election. And the issue is that New Jersey primary ballots are different from those of any other state. And I want to show you a little video that explains this.
Have you ever thought, why bother voting in New Jersey? You've seen the people in charge, and for the most part, they don't look like you, think like you, or seem to care about your values. Actually, they don't represent you. You've gone to demonstrations and heard some impressive people who had great new ideas, but they never seem to get elected. It seems that the same people win every year. There's a reason for this. In New Jersey, it's all about the primary election ballots. This is the county line. Party leaders place their favored candidates in the line, hoping you will vote for them blindly. They try to hide the independent voices where you won't see them. A candidate's position on the ballot, not their platform, determines whether they will win. This is not a level playing field. It's a stacked deck. And New Jersey is the only state that does this. In all other states, ballots are organized by the position candidates are running for. It is clear who is running for what position, thus allowing voters to choose whomever best represents them. Only in New Jersey, you have ballots where the competitors to this guy, the county clerk who gets to draw the ballot, are way over here. And there are two of them in one column, confusing voters who invalidate their ballot by voting for both. The end result? Stagnation. No congressional incumbent on the ballot's county line lost a primary election in New Jersey over the last 50 years. Meanwhile, nationally, 8 congressional incumbents lost a primary election this year alone. And no state legislative incumbent on the ballot's county line lost a primary election in New Jersey since 2009, while nationally, 154 state legislative incumbents lost a primary election in 2020. This is not what democracy looks like. We deserve better ballots. Join the Good Government Coalition of New Jersey's Better Ballots New Jersey campaign and help bring democracy to New Jersey. Go to www.bettrballotnewjersey.com. betterballotsnj.org for more information.
So as you heard in the video, and this interacts with exactly what we've been talking about, what Irene told us about regarding paper ballots, so we'll get to that in a bit. Most New Jersey counties use primary ballots that undermine fair elections and democracy and disenfranchise voters, and create a situation where instead of being beholden to voters, representatives are beholden to party machines that determine ballot position and are of course greased with money. So here's a ballot, a primary ballot in New Jersey. This is from Camden County. And this is a ballot that's organized in a way that suggests that the competition is between columns, like the different parties in the general election. So this is something that's easy for voters to kind of latch onto, when actually races are in rows here. So on one ballot, we have several different races. They're completely separate. So the race for county clerk is not the same as the race for council, and the races are actually in rows. And it's extremely unclear who's running against who. So one problem is that you don't know who's running against who. Another problem is that candidates who don't even know each other are grouped together on the line. And it looks like they're running as a slate. And in this case, Rina Margulis and Mohammed Kabir were not running as a slate. They're actually opponents to each other because this is a vote for one position. And many voters believe and are even told at the polling district, at the polling location, that if they're that they can only vote for one column, and moreover that if they're not voting down the line, then they're not supporting their party. When in fact, all of these candidates are in the same party because this is a primary election. And as you saw in the video, those on the line almost always win. So what is the alternative and what does a good ballot look like? So one more short video.
What does a good ballot look like? It's simple. There are only two rules. First, it should have clear boundaries between races, because one ballot serves elections for several totally separate positions. Second, it should have no gaps between candidates competing for the same position. For instance, candidates for U.S. Senate should be separated from candidates for local positions, such as county clerk. This makes clear to voters who is running for what positions, and they can easily select the candidate whose platform they most agree with. And to make ballots fair, the order of candidates in each list should be random, so that each candidate appears first equally often. Do New Jersey ballots measure up? Absolutely not. Our ballots are designed to confuse and manipulate voters to think that they are voting for package deals, this column or this one. But column 1 has no presidential candidate and only a Senate candidate. Who would vote for that? And column 3 has too many candidates for U.S. House of Representatives. Voting for this whole column will invalidate your vote for a House member altogether. This is like someone organizing your closet, not like this, by item type, but rather like this. So when you choose what to wear, you end up with no shirt and 2 pairs of shoes, which means that you actually go barefoot. This ballot structure is no accident. It is fully intentional. It ensures that candidates in the one full column, the so-called county line, always win, regardless of platform or whether they truly represent voters. This is not a democratic system. To bring better ballots to New Jersey and save our democracy, ask your local representatives and organizations to sign the GGCNJ resolution to establish a fair ballot. For more information and to sign on as a Better Ballots New Jersey campaign ambassador, go to www.betterballotsnj.org.
Okay, so New Jersey ballots with the county line are unique in the way that they have defects by design. They're purposefully violating these rules of good ballot design in order to manipulate voters. And the main problem is that they split candidates for the same office into different columns or rows, and often place additional blank columns between those candidates. So here's one example with 6 columns between these 2 people and Don Norcross, all running for one position. It is vote for one if you can read the tiny, tiny font on the ballot. Here is another example from Monmouth County in 2020. And I can show you many, many examples. Good ballot design is a design that makes contest boundaries clear. So here is a machine ballot in another state. This is in Nevada, in Georgia, actually. So when you go to the machines in Georgia, you will see race by race, each race, it's very clear who's running for that race, and you can select the candidate that you prefer. And it's also very clear how many to vote for. Whereas in paper ballots, you saw this in the video already, even though all the candidates are on one piece of paper, it's very clear where the contest boundaries are and how many to vote for in each block here. This is an office block ballot. This is from Nevada. Whereas in New Jersey, the county line makes it really difficult to determine the contest boundaries. So voters can be very confused. So here's an example from the 2017 governor's race. Try to find the county, the race boundaries here. They are this. So all the people on this row plus another. This is from Middlesex County. Here's another example where these three are running together. And of course, and you can see here that the lines are not thicker across races, between races. So it's hard to see that Payne is running with against these people rather than, you know, with the people above and below him, with Cory Booker and of course with Joe Biden. Here's a race from the recent election in Camden. So there was a very contentious race for mayor in Camden. Here is the party favorite. And here are the three people who have been very active. Our council members, our grassroots volunteers have been working to better Camden City for years, maybe decades, and they are stuck here. And now to go to the issue of, you know, I'll wait 2 slides. Here's one more example. So in some counties, the county line is a row, not a column. So this is a very interesting contest. Here, these 4 are running for General Assembly. And this is an example from Mercer County. In the 2020 Democratic primary election, we had these 3 people running for U.S. House of Representatives. And according to the bylaws in Mercer County, any candidate who gets more than 40% of the vote of the county committee, so the county committee is who determines who gets the line. And in Mercer County, if you get more than 40% of the vote, you get the line. And 2 people, Christine Conforti and Stephanie Schmidt, got more than 40%. So both of them were on the line. And as a result, 1/3 of Mercer County Democratic primary ballots cast in the 4th Congressional District had to be discarded for this race because voters selected both Conforti and Schmidt and disqualified their vote. And this is where this interacts with paper ballots. So on a machine, and I totally understand your recommendation to vote by paper ballot and to have a paper trace, but on a machine, the machine will, on a voting machine, it will prevent you from voting for more than one for this race. On paper, people often vote for the whole column because that's what they're used to. So this ballot not only gives Victor Karstafen a huge advantage because he's under Phil Murphy and other recognized names, but also people who try to vote for his opponents might vote for more than one, and their vote for race of mayor will be discarded. So this is a double advantage, basically. And unlike Florida's 2000 butterfly ballot, where there was a very bad design, the bad design here is not an accident. It is completely intentional. It's meant to encourage voters to vote the line. And we can see this in the campaigning by parties. So here is a flyer mailed to Democratic voters by the Hudson County Democratic Party in the 2020 primary. And it says, it's time to get Trump out of office, vote column B for Joe Biden, right? This is a primary election. Trump is not on the ballot if you're voting for, if you're a Democratic Party member. But this is cast as if you're not voting column B, you're basically voting for Trump. And here's another example from Mercer County. Please come out and show your support Democratic voters vote column A for the Mercer County Democratic candidates, as if the others are not Democratic candidates, but they are. So appearing on the county line provides candidates with a huge advantage. And one example that Julius S. Rubin studied was the 2020 primaries. Here, there were 4 contests in which different candidates had the county line in different counties. So this was a congressional election, and congressional districts span several counties. And what you could see is that being on the line versus off the line gives you a 35-point advantage on average. 35 points. That is huge. That's a landslide advantage. And I can show you one example from a Republican primary. I've been showing you Democratic ballots, but this is totally a bipartisan issue. So, or a nonpartisan issue. In the 3rd congressional district, the Republican Party had 2 candidates in 2 counties. Kate Gibbs was on the county line in Burlington County, David Richter on the county line in Ocean County. And what you can see here, basically, if you compare Gibbs on the line versus off the line, he has a 34 percentage point advantage when he's on the line compared to off the line, and Richter a 35-point advantage when she's on the line versus off the line. And indeed, no New Jersey legislative district incumbent on the county line has lost a primary during the last 12 years. And this might seem like, well, incumbency is a lot anyway, but nationally, 154 state legislative incumbents were defeated in primary elections in one election in 2020. And again, this is not a party issue. Democrats and Republicans can be defeated when they are incumbents. And just this last year, compared to, so we had legislative primaries, and also in Virginia had as well. We, of course, none of our legislators that had the county line lost, whereas 5 did in Virginia. And the county line protects incumbents at every level of New Jersey government. So both local and congressional incumbents, haven't lost a primary with the county line in the last 50 years. And this is how, as far back as Julius S. Rubin went back with her research. It might be more than 50. She just, gave up at that point. Whereas in 1 year alone, 8 congressional incumbents were defeated in primary elections nationally. So we have a congressional election coming up, and it will probably be the same. Once the primary is over, before the primary, before a single vote is cast, who is going to win, because you can look at who has the line, and that's who's going to win. And it's even worse than that. I don't have a slide for it here. Oh, I think I do have a slide for it, actually. It's going to come in a couple of slides. So in our recent elections, county line beat incumbency in several situations. So Assemblywoman DeCrotch lost re-election after losing the line in Morris. She was a 5-term Assemblywoman. Assemblywoman and Deputy Republican Whip Serena DiMasso lost re-election after losing the line, and 2 assembly people who lost the line, who were off the line in one county versus another, performed 11 points worse when they were off the line. And this was so egregious that in the press, 2021 was declared the year of the line, and the line wins. But in fact, every year is the year of the line in New Jersey for at least the last 50 years. It's just that now people are noticing more, partly because of campaigns like ours. So I started saying who selects who gets to be on the county line. So the county line is determined by party chairs in some counties, so the chair alone, a small group of party insiders in other counties, or a few hundred county committee members at best. So I'm a county committee member in Mercer County, and in Mercer, we have a vote in a convention, but that's 400 people determining who is going to get the line. And in the last convention, we had, for instance, for county commissioner, we had 5 candidates for 3 seats. And the 2 that didn't get the line dropped out of the race. One of them had been a county commissioner for, I think, more than 30 years, something of that, or maybe it was 27 years, Ann Cannon. And she would not compete off the line, even though she lost the vote in the Mercer Convention only by a couple of percents. So you would think a candidate that's almost, it's almost getting re-endorsed by the county convention could compete successfully, and especially as an incumbent, but that is not what she chose to do. And she's not the only one. So in Hudson County, Chair Velati, who was also an incumbent, lost the line. He was, so in Hudson County, I said that sometimes it's a few party insiders. In Hudson County, there is a tradition that the mayor of Bayonne gets to choose one of the assembly people on the line, assembly candidates for the line. And I believe the mayor of Jersey City chooses the other. And for some reason that he would not say, Bayonne mayor decided to dump Chair Velati, who is the assembly majority whip, so not a small player for the Democratic Party. And what Chair Velati said in this case is, no one individual should dictate who represents the people of Bayonne and Jersey City in the New Jersey legislature. This sentence itself amazes me, because this is a representative for the whole legislative district, not just for these two cities, but because their mayors by tradition determine the representative, he's considering them the only constituents. Unfortunately, in the culture of Hudson County politics, there's no current process for me to present my record, no screening committees, no interviews, no participation on the part of the elected Democratic Committee members. And what he didn't say here is, even if the elected Democratic Committee members had participated, the voters would not. And in this case, he dropped out of the race, just like Ann Cannon. So candidates who are not awarded the line often drop out, leading to very few vote choices for voters. Here are just two examples of ballots. You can see the ballot from Trenton, Mercer County in 2021. There's one person, if you vote down the line, basically you can vote for Murphy versus Murphy, for Shirley Turner versus Shirley Turner, etc. There's basically no competitor for any of these, except for, I believe this was state Democratic Committee. So, and here's another example from Essex County, where it's a row. And again, except for sheriff, all the other races, there are no options for voters. So we tell voters, we do get out the vote, and we tell them to go out and to vote on paper ballots and to be very secure, but they're voting, or there's no choice on their ballot. This kind of reminds me of what goes on in Russia. And in fact, Julius S. Rubin just published, and I meant to put a slide of it and I forgot, an op-ed comparing her home country, because she was born in Russia, and elections there to elections in New Jersey. In comparison, in May 2021, the Pittsburgh Democratic Party, you can see their ballot here. It looks like there are lots of people running, because there are, but it's very clear what is going on. So there are 4 mayoral candidates for one position. So it says vote for one, and here are the candidates. There are 39 judicial candidates for 9 positions, vote for 9, and 2 sheriff candidates for 1 position. And in that case, Pittsburgh chose a progressive challenger, the first Black mayor, over an incumbent, and 5 progressives who ran for judgeships on curtailing bail and incarceration won. So change like this is possible in places like Pittsburgh. It is not possible in New Jersey. In the last, I thought I had a slide on it, but I can't see it. I can't find it now. In our last election, out of 240 races for Assembly and Senate, so 120 candidates, but I'm talking about races in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, only 10%, 24 races were competitive. That is it. 90% of voters had no choice who to vote for Assembly or for Senate. So candidates become beholden to the people who award them the line and not to voters. And that generates lack of transparency, inside deals, breeds patronage, breeds corruption, breeds budgets that are advanced minutes after making them public, because the public doesn't need to be consulted if the public isn't determining whether someone will be reelected or not. And that exactly explains what was going on in Hudson County. Here, Amy DeGeese, the county chair, who gets to decide, they don't have a convention, who decides who is on, actually, I'm not sure, maybe they do have a convention, who gets the county line. She is the daughter of the county executive, and the county executive really wanted this contract because of the money it brings the county. So the county commissioners knew that if they vote against the contract, they will lose the line and they will lose election in the next round. And indeed, one of them voted against, and he said he paid the ultimate political price. He was thrown off the Hudson County Democratic Organization, and I believe he did not run. And the final thing is, this really prohibits needed reforms. You were talking before about a terrible bill that needs to be stopped, but there are great bills that don't move in our legislative sessions. And I could give you many, many examples here. I just put a few examples from the last legislative session, the 2020-2021 one. So this bill that required public access to law enforcement disciplinary records, another that establishes restriction on police qualified immunity defense, Reproductive Freedom Act, which had 6 Senate and 28 Assembly sponsors, and the birth control dispensing bill, all of these did not move at all. So all of our issues really rely on having representatives who will represent us. And as you saw, 90% of voters in New Jersey didn't even have a choice on who their representatives would be at the Assembly and Senate. So the result is that we have a very non-inclusive and non-fair democracy. Women and people of color are kept out of politics. We have non-competitive elections where people are elected, and you can call it appointed because an elected election when you don't have a competition is really an appointment, and they're appointed for life or until they decide to retire. And this also explains the abysmal voting rate that we have in New Jersey. Voters know that their vote doesn't matter and they don't bother to vote. By the way, about the issue of women and people of color being kept out of politics, I can give you a couple of numbers here. So we've had only 1 woman governor. We've had only 7 women that have represented New Jersey in Congress. And as recently as 2004, New Jersey was 43rd nationally. So 43rd from the top, 7th from the bottom in percent of women in the state legislature. In 2021, we were 26th nationally. We moved up to 17th now after the last election. We have 34% women in the legislature. It should be 50%, obviously. And this is true for people of color as well, especially the Hispanic community and the Asian community are very underrepresented in our legislature. And as I said, this affects our lives every day, everything that our taxes are used for, and the laws in this state. So I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be this way. And one way that we are trying to change this, and I already showed you how easy it is to make ballots that are clearer and that are fairer. And we're not saying that parties should not endorse. Parties can endorse. Parties endorse in every state across the US. They just don't have to rig the ballot in the way that endorsement means winning. Endorsement is a recommendation to voters. It shouldn't tie their hands. And so we started the Better Ballots New Jersey campaign, which you can find on our website, either through going to ggcnj.org and clicking on Better Ballots NJ or going to betterballotsnj.org. They both lead to the same place. And the main goal of this campaign is to effect change from the bottom, from the grassroots, by forcing the legislature to change our primary election ballots. Now, of course, they don't want to do that. They're the people who have benefited from the system being how it is. They're the ones who win elections without working for voters, who are accountable only to party bosses, and who get to help choose their successors. But that is, except when they're stonewalled and suddenly realize that being at the mercy of a few party bosses is a double-edged sword. So we're hoping to convince them that thousands and hundreds of thousands of people support a resolution to establish a better ballot, and in that way push them to change the law and change the way our ballots look like. So our resolution asks for 2 things. It asks for an office block display, which are these boxes for each race separately, and a rotational order system within those boxes. I can talk about these details later on in Q&A if you're interested. You can find the resolution on our website at ggcnj.org/resolution. And so far this is a resolution not for individuals to sign on to, but for groups to sign on to. So we've had 72 groups sign on, 17 statewide organizations, the League of Women Voters, New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, New Jersey Citizen Action, New Jersey Policy Perspective, and many others. We have 90 party organizations, municipal committees, not all Democratic, there's one Republican here, and 46 regional and local organizations. I think I have 2 slides here by mistake. And we've had several sitting legislators support our new ballot, our resolution, or support our call for new ballots. 2 of them are no longer sitting legislators. They supported this after they were thrown off the line, but others were on the line and still supported our resolution. I should say that they got a lot of pressure, and after basically getting our endorsement, kind of tried to walk back in different ways their support, but we know that in their heart of hearts, they are supporting us because they did. And it's public and it's on our website. So what can you do? The first important thing is, as an organization, we'd love for you to sign the resolution as well. And of course, this will be a discussion within your organization, and I'm just here to answer questions. I shouldn't be part of that. As individuals, you can sign on as campaign ambassadors, like Mark is doing, getting more organizations and political groups to sign. Every person who is active in New Jersey, I think, is active in more than one group. So some people do a lot, some people do nothing. The people who do always do a lot. So we welcome any group to sign, from faith groups to unions to environmental, racial justice groups, social justice groups. We really want to reach 100 organizations as soon as possible. We can come and give talks like this, presentations like this in your organization, or we can empower you to give a presentation. We can give you a toolkit. We can support you in presenting these ideas. We encourage you to follow us online on whatever social media you use, Twitter, Facebook. We're not on Instagram. We're not young like that. You can join the Good Government Coalition of New Jersey. We have a call to action list that we really don't call on very often, but once in a while we do. You can join our coalition as an organization. Good Government Coalition of New Jersey is a coalition of organizations. And to join, all you need to do is say, I want to join, and we will list you on our website as part of the coalition. And also, we hope that you will educate voters, because they're not compelled to vote the line. Once we talk to our neighbors and to our friends and tell them, you've been fooled by this thing, try to, see who, read up about all the candidates. Hopefully there are more than one candidate for every position on your ballot, but in that case, they shouldn't be blinded by the line. And if you wish to donate to our voter education campaign, of course, we'll be very happy with that. And finally, you can also run for county committee. We have county committee trainings that are separate. I'm not going to go into that today. County committees are trying to affect this change from within the parties. So that is all that I have. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah. I don't want to, could you quickly, could you quickly just mention the lawsuit? Do you want to?
Sure. I'm happy to do that. Let me stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? Just a second. Stop share. Yes, there's also a lawsuit that was brought. We are supporting the lawsuit as GGCNJ, but we're not part of the lawsuit. The lawsuit is partisan and we're nonpartisan. A lawsuit declaring or trying to argue that the line is unconstitutional. It forces people to associate with people that they don't want to, and it prevents association from others. I would argue that it also violates the one person, one vote, but that's a little bit more circuitous, and I'm not the lawyer there. They know what they're doing. That lawsuit has a large number of plaintiffs, and we've been waiting for a long time to hear. Right now, it is the county clerks that were named as that were named on the lawsuit have asked for the lawsuit to be dismissed. And I believe we've been waiting for a year basically to hear the answer on that. If it's dismissed, then that will be contested. I forget the legal jargon for this, but they will, that will not be the end of it. And if it's not dismissed, that will definitely not be the end of it. And that will be an amazing sea change. So one of the things that we're relying on here with our Better Ballot campaign is a kind of multi-pronged approach, where if the legislature sees that this lawsuit is going through and moving forward, then they'll realize that they might want to get ahead of this. And so we're also talking to some legislators and trying to get prepared bills that will change the ballots to be office block and rotational order. It's such a short bill. It's really easy. Basically, our resolution is the bill that we would hope they would write.
All right, great. This is just, I mean, we did go over to the allotted time, but there's so much information. It's so critical. Please, I think there are already a few questions in the chat.
Yes.
I think you might have answered Irene's question. Laura provided helpful links. And if you have
for
a question,
Irene's question about the random order, I actually feel like that I didn't answer that properly. I have a couple of slides that can explain that really well. Let me just share those. So basically, Irene, what we know is that, and everybody else, what we know is that the rotational order, that primacy effect, so whoever is first on the ballot gets an advantage, especially when there are many candidates, when there are no incumbents running, and when the races are minimally publicized. So in New Jersey, there are lots of races like for freehold, et cetera, that don't have strong campaigns, and we can call them minimally publicized. So the idea is to rotate the order in each polling district. So even for paper ballots, you can basically, paper ballots are printed separately for each polling district because they have different down ballot, they have different county committee members. This is not a whole ballot, so you don't see the county committee members here. So they can print them with a different order for each polling district, so that basically people who are voting blindly just for the first, or the first two, if it's vote for two here, are randomized over in different polling districts. And those who have bothered to read up about the candidates and are voting with actual knowledge and are more educated voters and intentional voters get more say on what's happening and who gets elected. And this is just to show that this is not that unusual. 16 states do that. Some Republican controlled, some Democratic controlled. 18 states randomized, 15 states alphabetized. We are the only state that does the order by who gets endorsed.
Well, I was asked to oversee the Q&A period, and thank you, Yale, so much. I thought that was a really outstanding presentation. It was clear, it was compelling. Yes, let's show Yale some appreciation. That was really opened my eyes to something that I was basically totally unaware of. So I really appreciate that, and I'm quite sure that Coalition for Peace Action will be undertaking consideration of joining this campaign. I do want to, before we go to some other questions in the chat box, I do want to mention something about what Irene and Stephanie said about our 17-year paper ballot campaign to try to ensure that all voters are voting by paper ballot instead of electronic machines. And that is that something else associated with that Irene and Stephanie should get a great shout out on is they helped pass the first in the country audit law. It's the gold standard of audits. And it's a random audit to make sure that nothing funny is going on. And the first time that law, it was passed somewhere in the middle part of the first decade of the 21st century, that law, the first time it was able to be implemented was after the 2020 election, because almost everybody voted by paper ballot. You can't do the audit unless almost all the votes are being done by paper ballot. So I think that showed a really big success and a great potential for increasing. Now, Irene, you also, I saw, wanted to mention something else about that issue before we go on to questions for
Yeah,
Yale.
just very briefly, there's a strong mention and it's an excellent presentation, Yael. Thank you so much. Optical scan tabulators recognize if you have overvoted. And so I encourage you, electronic tabulators are vulnerable, can be hacked, and one should be most careful about not giving the impression that paper cannot, that the paper that's tabulated is not also subject to that kind of recognition. So please, I will get you better, more specific information, but everybody on the call, please know that when you put in your optical scanned ballot, your paper ballot, it looks to see, did you intentionally not vote for somebody? It might ask you a question, and then you have an opportunity to 2 or 3 times to correct your ballot if you've made a mistake. So just, I'll let you know, Yael, more specifically, but I'd take a look at that language, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. And so now, Yale, we do have a few questions for you. First, what is the percentage of ballots that are disqualified due to the issues discussed in your presentation?
So we can't really know for voting on machines, basically. So how to answer this? When you vote on a machine, then it doesn't let you vote for too many, right? So those are not discarded due to overvoting. For voting for paper ballots, and I'm not talking about the ones that will be scanned, for vote by mail, where they can't come back to you and say, who did you intend to vote for when you voted for 3? I see, Irene, you're correcting me. Yes.
The county clerk, if someone has done that, there's an option to cure the ballot. Now it's complicated because if they've been mailed in or dropped into a box, but there is that initiative.
I thought that the ballot curing was only for things like the signature, not for changing who you voted for.
Currently, I understand that the campaign was for signatures, but I don't know that it was not also for.
It's separate. It's separate because the signatures are checked in advance, but then they take out the ballot so that once they look at the ballot, they can't know whose it was on purpose because it's a secret vote.
That's
so
correct.
At that point, there's no way to cure it because you don't know who to call.
That's correct.
And
so then you're
that's
talking about ballot design is all the more important.
Exactly.
And it should be on paper and hand marked.
So, and those, it's very hard to count, Reverend Moore. They don't necessarily, counties don't publish those numbers. So Julia got the numbers for Mercer for legislative district 4. I can't remember how. Maybe Mercer made those numbers public, but often they don't make them public. So we don't know.
As a committee person at that time in that race, we all knew that that's what had happened. And we were not real happy, you know, that all those votes got disqualified.
Yeah, apologies for the confusion. Thank you.
I think what is clear is that the ballot structure can make it very easy to mistakenly vote for more candidates than you're allowed to vote for because of the layout.
Yeah.
And so, you know, these little things in small type that says vote only for 1 and all that, but the layout is indeed, wow, that was compelling to say what a huge difference it makes. 35% difference with whether or not you're in the county line column. Wow, that is pretty, you know, substantial and impressive in terms of, anyway. One more thing, and then I got one more question, is that our work, the Coalition for Peace Action, in fact, I mentioned this when we were celebrating my 40th anniversary as executive director in December, is that I feel one of the basic principles that we've used in our organizing over these past 40 years is to use the power of grassroots democracy. And grassroots democracy is the purest form of democracy, where the people can have the influence. And, you can't have the influence if the party bosses and others are really sort of controlling and manipulating the situation. And so, this is why we got into the paper ballot issue as well, is that if things aren't happening in the way that empowers the voter to have their power as a voter, exercising our most sacred right in America, the right to vote, if that is being undermined, then our grassroots, are one of the greatest powers we have of grassroots democracy, isn't being used. So again, thank you. Here's a question from somebody who's saying, who or what entity actually designs the primary ballots, and who approves that design?
Yeah. So thanks, David, for that question. So it differs by county. So each county for each party has county chairs. So there are 21 counties, 42 county chairs, all in all. In some counties, the county chair decides on their own who gets the county line. In some counties, you saw that in Hudson, it is 2 mayors that decide for the assembly people, and God knows who decides for the others. So it's basically backroom deals between small groups of people that decide who gets the line. The best possible, but that happens in very few counties, is a county committee vote in a convention. And so that's a few hundred people who are deciding. Some of these conventions are not secret ballot, or you raise your hand, and they have hawk eyes and can completely, and we know of cases where people voted against the kind of favored candidate and were then thrown off the line themselves in their race, because those are all elected positions, and were thrown out of the county committee that way. So it's very, very different in different places across the state, but in all cases, it's not the voters, which is who should really be making these decisions. And the most egregious part of this is we see this on a daily basis. So someone declares that they are going to retire, and immediately, within less than 24 hours, the party insiders declare who is going to replace them. They say, we have all agreed. So now Robert Menendez Jr. is going to be our House representative. I forget for what legislative district. The elections haven't happened yet. A single ballot hasn't been cast by anybody, but we already know that because 4 people decided that that's what's going to happen. And that's not the only case. And they even say that in their language when they're quoted in articles and on the radio. They say, we have chosen, we have decided that this person will be our representative, not that this person will be on the ballot and then the voters choose. It's the biggest open secret in New Jersey is that we don't get to choose at all as voters.
Sorry, but my question really was about the design of the ballot. I get that county commissioners and committees for particular parties pre-choose candidates and give them a line.
Yes.
But who actually designs the piece of paper and who approves that?
So the county clerk designs the piece of paper.
Okay.
And some counties in New Jersey, 2 counties in New Jersey don't have a line. They have office block ballots because that's how their county clerk has been doing it. Funny enough, in one of them, it's because their machines are so old that they can only do this. And now they want to buy new machines. This is in Salem County. And we're like, no, please keep the old stuff.
Market old machines. Yeah.
Exactly. But so it is a county clerk, but there are all kinds of bylaws, again, different for different counties on what the county clerk is allowed to do or not allowed to do. So for instance, in Camden County, there's not one line, there are several lines that are drawn by drawn randomly by some random draw that always makes the biggest line first. Don't ask me how. Basically, every slate of freeholders gets to have of county commissioners, formerly called freeholders, gets to have a line. And then whoever is not running county commissioners in their slate are all grouped together at the end in what's called Ballot Siberia. But they managed to manipulate that in all kinds of ways. So for instance, in Camden County, they routinely run phantom freeholders who run with nobody else in their slate just to pad more and more columns. These people have no email, no website, no nothing. They definitely do not run to win. They're just there to pad the ballot. They run every year. And then the slates that do run, that are trying to oppose the party machine, try to run their own county commissioners in order to get a line and to not be grouped together with people that they're not running with. And routinely, for some reason, the signatures for their county commissioners are discarded in a way that their county commissioners can't run. So it's a lot of manipulation, a lot of it at the hands of the county clerk.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
can I
you.
also point out that the county clerk is a partisan position? And so
Elected
the county-
partisan position
Yeah.
on the ballot,
on
drawing the
line,
ballot where they
if
get
that county clerk doesn't do what the chairman asked them to do, they might not get the line next time.
Yes, that certainly sounds very undemocratic to me, and it disempowers the grassroots of our democracy. So thank you for calling this to our attention. I did want to say a few things in closing. I'm not spotting any other questions in our chat box, but before I give a final thank you to you, Yale, I did want to just mention a few things. Several people have asked about a recording of this webinar, and our Assistant Director, Patricia, has kindly posted that it will be on our website within a day. That's certainly, I hope we can do it that fast, but certainly within a few days, we should have it. And the best way to find that, if you want to find it sooner rather than later, is to go to our peacecoalition.org, our website, and at the top right tab, not all the way at the top, but the next level of tabs is one that says recent events. That's where we post these things. So it'll be a YouTube recording. We hope you'll share this with your contacts by forwarding that recording. Also, I wanted to mention that our Peace Education Committee meeting, a monthly meeting, is this Tuesday at 5 on Zoom, and the chair of that committee, Ram Chellery, is with us, and he has put on the agenda for one item, among others. We'll be doing a debriefing about this webinar as one of the items on our agenda, but another item we're going to be talking about is a suggestion that we have a vigil of solidarity and peace for the people of Ukraine in our Princeton area in the near future. So if you'd like to be part of that discussion, we would welcome you coming, whether or not you've been part of previous meetings. And again, find the the meeting information at peacecoalition.org under upcoming events. We'd really love to have you get involved in that, whether or not you've been at a previous meeting. Again, I think this has been a really excellent presentation, Yale. I'm so glad that Mark found you, and I want to again express our appreciation. It was clear, has a clear path forward. It identified a major flaw in the way we're doing our democratic elections right now, and also pointed to a way to fix that flaw. And I think this is what a great democracy should be doing, is constantly looking at what it's not doing as well as it should do and improving that, because that's what makes for a functioning, thriving, living democracy. So we really appreciate your contribution to all of us on this webinar, and I think to many others as well in that regard.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
You're
having
welcome.
me.
You're very welcome. We were honored to have you.
I
We are
just want-
just, Go ahead, Mark. You wanted to say something in closing.
Yeah, it does say I wrap up. So, but we are a little bit behind, but I'll do it real quick. Again, so much thanks for all of this and all the work that Yale and Julia, the research from Julia. Yale, I think, forgot to mention, she's a professor herself at Princeton. I know what it is, but I want to say it wrong. Could you just say?
Yeah, I'm a professor in psychology and neuroscience, and I study learning and decision making. So you can see why decision making brought me to this.
Yeah, neuroscientist. So she's a heavy hitter in her own right, and very well, I'm sure very well respected in her own field and in this field. And I will say that, as I said, I've heard the presentation many times, including how to become a county committee person. I was inspired, urged, cajoled into running for county committee in my own voting district in West Windsor. And the opportunity arose because our former mayor, Xing Fouché, decided to step down. And I was asked by people in West Windsor to please, run. And full disclosure, I was given the line. And a third person ran. There was an incumbent and then two new people. The third person who ran was someone like me, lived in Princeton Oaks, where I live, for the same amount of time, even longer, maybe even knew more people than I did. I mean, I certainly knew a lot of people. And because I had the line, I had almost as many votes as the incumbent, well over 100. And the fellow who was off the line got maybe 4 votes. So I have my own little anecdotal experience to add to your data, not worth publishing, but that is what happened. And I was like, I did campaign. When I was walking my dog, I asked people, please vote for me. And people afterwards said, oh, I saw you on the ballot. I certainly voted for you. And that's what happened. And so thank you. And we're not that far over. It's 4:08. And any other questions, please send them our way. We can certainly forward them to Yale. And I can't think of anything else. So this has been great.
Thank you so much. This is really wonderful. Very informative. Thanks so very much, Yale.
Thanks again. Have a good rest of your afternoon, everybody.
Yes. Glad to see Laura on the call as well.
Thanks, Professor Neve. Bye-bye.